to be in pictures. You're wonderful to see. You ought to
My
be
number
in
two
pictures
is something I
all
just
over.
recently watched,
You would
and that is
be
Jeffrey Wright in
your
American Fiction. I just thought this film calls out so much of a lot of, like, listen, I'm not African American, but I know that there is a lot of pandering that white Americans do to the black community.
Mm.
You and I have talked about it in the show before, for lack of a better term, and we both hate it, is the wokeness, how the pendulum swings too far the other way. And suddenly, and then this film brilliantly highlights just white Americans' willingness to just gobble up any garbage the black community gives them in order to kind of nullify our collective guilt and find some representation or voice wherever it happens to be. And in this film, Jeffrey Wright plays a distinguished African American. He's a writer who just happens to be African American,
Right.
and he does okay as an author, but his publishers keep wanting him to write blacker or more black stories. And he finds that very, two-dimensional. And in a nutshell, he kind of, through a number of circumstances, decides to take on the persona of an anonymous writer who's on the run. He's an escaped convict, and he writes the authentic black experience novel, which of course goes to number one in the New York Times
It's sort of
bestseller
a
list and one of
ghetto
the
thriller kind of thing,
ghetto
isn't it?
thriller,
Yeah.
gangster, everything he despises, everything he
Mm.
hates. And of course, it goes to number one. And just all the drama that happens and surrounds. And it's a lot of social criticism on what's going on in American today with representation and our understanding of race relations, and often our desire. I call it the zooification of cultures. And it's not just African American or white. This is, you and I travel internationally. We want and we expect certain cultures to behave a certain way. We
Mm.
want them to act this way because we want to go to the zoo and see the specimens in their cages doing what our expectations of them are.
I
And
know
when
what
they
you mean.
turn out to be
Okay.
more nuanced, when they turn out to be more complex, is what Jeffrey Wright keeps highlighting in this film. People are more complex than this. They're more nuanced than this. We cannot just reduce them down to these experiences. And you can see the frustration in him that African American life in America is defined by race. It's defined by the black boy being killed by the police. It's defined by the single mom raising five kids with the father is God knows where. It's not that those things don't happen, but you see the frustration of there's so much more in the black experience than that. And yet
Right.
America, and particularly white America, this is the zoo we want to go. This is when we go to see this, this is what we want to see.
Yeah, I mean, and you see it in this part of the world as well. It's like they want Asian stories told by Asian storytellers, but they
Yeah.
only want Asian stories from Asian storytellers.
Right.
There is no space for anybody else to tell anything else
No.
in this part of the world, and certainly, like in Wright's character's position, they certainly don't want sort of ordinary, sort of raceless stories, if you like,
Yes. Yeah.
being told by anybody, let alone by an author that they could better market if they were telling other kinds of stories.
Right.
Yeah, no, it's a movie that I liked it. It didn't make my top 10. It's around the 20
Yeah.
position and it certainly elements of it really sort of resonated with me. Those certainly a lot of those frustrations of sort of the
Yeah.
artist,
Yes.
resonated with me, and I felt. I felt it. I mean, I certainly liked sort of Issa Rae's character as well, who is the sort of the
Hmm.
young black writer who has succeeded, who has a
Yeah.
big
Yeah.
bestseller about that, and the conversation that they have
Yeah.
when they both find themselves on jury,
Yes. Yeah. For
on a
the,
literary jury, and
yeah.
he realizes that essentially she's pulling the same game as him, and that she's not sort of the voice from the ghettos that her work claims to be, although she's been sort of playing up to it as well. I
Yeah.
thought that was sort of really well done. I also like sort of other characters outside of that sort of central drama, like sort of Sterling K. Brown, who plays his
Yes.
brother, his gay
Yeah.
brother, who is
Yeah.
very much living his own life, but again, not a stereotype.
Yeah.
They're not leaning into those kind of stereotypes, but and a lot of the friction that's going on back home, the
Mm.
reasons that is sort of driving him to make this ridiculous decision to
Yeah.
feign, to placate the
Yeah.
literary masses, if you like. So yeah, no, there was a lot in it I liked. I felt it didn't quite sort of stick the landing a little bit. It kind of sort of unraveled slightly towards the end, but yeah,
The
there was
the
definitely some really
third
good stuff in that.
the third act was its weakest act for sure.
Mm,
But I thought they ended it nicely with, of course, the cop shooting the black man. And to
right,
me,
yeah.
maybe being American is so part of the narrative. I constantly hear that this is something that America is wrestling with a lot. But yeah, I just thought this film, from the opening scene where the university student, he's teaching at a university, Jeffrey Wright's character, and they're doing Flannery O'Connor, and they're talking about the N word, and of course, there's always the white girl who takes on the offense. And the black guy's not offended by it. It's the feigned offense,
Mm,
and that somehow we can kind of that university student becomes a microcosm of a greater problem in America, which is you know, kind of tearing at the fabric of society there. And so I think that's why this film figures so high up the list for me. It really speaks to a lot of divisions and issues that are
You
going on
ought
in
to be
America
in
right now, and it was
pictures.
wonderfully well
You're
told.
wonderful to see. You ought to be in pictures. Oh, what a hit you would be. Your voice